Wake me up.
Yeah?
Wake me up inside.
Alright, everybody's phones on silent, please.
Hello, boys and girls, and welcome to another episode of the Compass Box Podcast. Sup, y'all? Podcast time. Let's break it down. Raag, give me a beat. There we go. Okay, enough. Joined with me today, my fellow colleagues, comrades, and music aficionados, Raag Sethi, Meera Desai, Protyay Chakraborty, and Shankar Iyer. Protyay is our very own sound and mix engineer and an esteemed vocalist and violinist in his own right. Having been
in his own right, like my own opinion.
You've decided.
Having been a key member of kick-ass bands like Disciples of the Old Monk and Ahmedabad's own Heatsink, Protyay is what you get when you leave Ozzy Osbourne and the Scary Women from the Ring alone in a room together for a night.
That's true.
Oh my god,
Ozzy Osbourne is like the opposite. Like वो addiction का like
Yeah, but the
poster
hair,
boy.
It's the aesthetic, I think.
And the screaming.
Yeah.
Meera Desai is a singer born and raised in New York and moved to Ahmedabad to study Hindustani classical music.
Worst decision ever.
Opposite American dream.
Meera released her debut EP, I called I've Never Been Happier to Be Lost last year, produced by our very own Raag. It's already been featured on Rolling Stone's Best Indian EPs of 2019, and her song Homes was also nominated for the Pop Production Awards. Raag Sethi, facial hair extraordinaire and founder, owner, engineer, and producer of Compass Box Studios, has a solid musical resume to boast. He's a guitarist and producer for Ahmedabad's premier jazz ensemble, Time-Wise, the bassist and producer for Heatsink, and also the founding member and bassist for Random Gyan. Give it up for Raag Sethi over here.
Yay.
Finally, we're joined with Shankar. Shankar's a guitarist and student of ethnomusicology. He has performed at gigs across the country at venues like the Piano Man Jazz Club, the Spoken Fest in Bombay, and the Little Door in Bombay. So before we guys talk about the more intense things in this podcast, we just celebrated a year of Compass Box. So I want to get a sense of what's it been like. We've gone full circle. We've come a long way in terms of what we want to achieve. So Raag, if you could maybe shed some light on why did you begin this endeavor and starting a studio, specifically in Ahmedabad?
Well, Compass Box actually started without the intention of doing any of the things that we're doing right now. Because I wanted to actually create a jam space for us to like play and make music together.
Right.
And the very first thing we did together is the Random Gyan EP that we put out.
Oh, wow.
And then I realized, there's a lot of downtime in the studio. Like, there isn't enough work for indie music. Like, there's a lot of work for studios here for voiceovers and commercial stuff. Now. There's no real scene for like producing indie music. So I realized, okay, there's a lot of downtime. Why don't we do something about it?
Yeah.
So we used the space and we thought, hey, listen, why don't we just get live sessions of... I'm a big fan of Coke Studio and like Audio Tree and stuff like that, which we both are huge fans of.
And we are Tiny
Desk, of course.
True.
So we were like, why don't we try something of our own?
Yeah. So who did you start this team with originally?
Meera.
Uh-huh.
So Meera and I shared this idea with Meera. She's like, hey, that sounds like a good idea. And the first video we put up, in fact, was Meera's song Divine from her EP. We did that as a live session.
Okay.
And we were like, hey, this is a cool idea. And then Protyay came on board. Initially, Protyay came as like to play violins and vocals. And then I was like, dude, why didn't, like, he's a much better mix engineer than I am. So
when Raag asked you to join, did you have any idea that it would come to what it's come to right now, in the sense that we have a fully produced, a professional studio with artists coming from across the country? Did you ever see this as like a future prospect?
Absolutely not. Like, because so the first time I actually was part of this was when we were doing Heatsink session here. And we recorded the session and I just offered, maybe I could try mixing it because I was pretty new at the whole mixing thing at that time. So it's like, why don't you give it a shot?
Right.
So, and that was the first time I was actually mixing a full band. So I made a mix and he's like, hey, this sounds kind of good, so we can put it up. So I was like, hey, if this is good enough for Raag to put it up on his channel, maybe I could give this a shot. So then it started, started mixing all the other sessions, and then I kept getting better at it. So now I'm also doing that as a sort of a profession, in addition to the live music. So yeah, this was like my practice ground in terms of mixing. Right. And because I think all of us have become so much better at recording, because the studio game is like an entirely different game from the live session. And now I think all of us are much more comfortable being in the studio in front of a mic, and we can jot out sessions much faster than we could probably in the... So it's been a practice learning experience for all of us, in addition to whatever we've been doing for the indie scene. So didn't have any idea that we would be here, I would be doing this as a job or whatever, but we're here now.
So Meera and Shankar, you guys have collaborated quite often, and when Protyay talks about Compass Box, or at least what we've done as a collective of creative people, what has been your experience in terms of interacting with people from the city and collaborating with them and using perhaps Compass Box or the studio or even other platforms in the city as means of furthering your own craft and using that as a way to bounce ideas off each other?
I think, that was a huge question.
Each question for a small person.
How did we use Compass Box to kind of, I can answer how I use Compass Box to learn like what, kind of what Protyay was saying, like experiencing different facets of, music. Because I came to Raag and I'm like, I have this song. He's like, why don't we do it as a session, whatever. Okay, then that was done. Yeah. Then we started the whole thing where Raag started like rearranging the sessions and then everyone kind of, a person would come in with their song and then Raag would be like, okay, let's, add this, add violin, add some vocals. So that specifically was really cool for me to like see how that happens in real time and like, okay, just come up with a harmony here and like record it live and it's forever,
True.
in this thing. It's forever. Because before this studio mindset, you're like, I can do harmonies. I can do this. But when you're actually like in the spot, then it's really difficult to do it.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, even for you, Shankar, I'm sure like there must have been moments when you're like, I've never tried something like this before.
Oh, so the first time I walked into the studio, I didn't even know how mics work.
Yeah.
and now here I am recording, setting up the microphones, being the recording engineer for the whole thing. So like, the studio personally as a space has always been the place where I have learned a lot more. And the great thing is that I have learned in process of doing.
Okay.
So it has always been sort of, this is like you're thrown into a situation. Okay, this is the thing. Okay, we have 4 instruments here. Yeah. How do we go about miking them? How do we go about getting the best possible sound out of all of them?
Yeah, fair enough. So Raag, it's interesting because as the owner and founder of this studio, looking back at the year, what do you think has been not only the challenges but moments when you're like, wow, that was a moment when I was like, this is going to significantly change the way forward and how I think about.
I think the biggest challenge for me personally, and I think all of us can agree with that, is just funding and money.
Yeah, fair.
I think you should know this is an entirely volunteer-driven, completely free effort. Like, we do this out of our own time. We're not getting paid as of yet. Once YouTube allows us to monetize our videos. If anybody's interested in sponsoring. I remember when we first started, we were like, okay, let's do 2 videos a month.
Right.
And that seemed like a stretch because we were like, there aren't enough people to record. There aren't enough people making original music.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
I know, right?
Now
like,
there's
our
emails are flooded.
Full.
Our inbox, like we get between 5 to 10 emails every week from people from Jaipur, from Delhi, from the south, from the Far East. Like you name it, we've got sessions.
Yeah, we never imagined it going beyond Ahmedabad or Gujarat at a stretch, and now we have people coming down specifically for this just because they heard of Compass Box from a friend or they saw a session. They're like, we want to get on this, and they email us. So our inboxes are flooded. Raag gets calls every single day looking for sessions.
Hey, can we do a session? And it's cool because like if you look at the first like maybe 4 to 5 sessions, all from Gujarat.
Oh really? Okay.
Yeah. We did some spoken word poetry as well, all from Gujarat. Some live sessions, all from Gujarat. And then we were like, hey, why don't we reach out to more people maybe? And suddenly that train started going. And I think people realized, like a lot of the emails that we got also very specifically mentioned, we saw your production quality. And I think that's one thing that people really come here for because unlike the other sort of like live recording studio type thing. I mean, I'm not aware, but I think we're the only studio in India who are creating live sessions from the studio, completely free of cost for artists. And we did that again with the same intention because we all love making music rather than playing other people's music.
And making quality music.
And that's what it's about. And
I feel like that was like the difference that I feel like people put indie music into this pocket, like, oh yeah, like you can record here in this like little cafe or whatever.
Yeah.
And like we're like, no, like like take the time and break it down and make it like a full song and
it's interesting you say that because even for in my personal experience, like I've gone across colleges and people have literally only recently when we got announced by the way that Compass Box is listed on the top 10 by Indian Music Digest for the top 10 recording studios in the country. And from that, like recently, one of my friends tagged me and they're like, "Oh, congratulations!" I was like, I felt proud. I was like, "Yeah, thank God!" Like the people I work with are genuinely doing something worthwhile. So my question is, you mentioned specifically the quality level. That's an incentive to get upcoming artists to come. But beyond that, what do you think Compass Box specifically provides that might give other artists an incentive to travel all the way down?
Right. Why would I spend so much time and money recording an original song when I can play commercial gigs and earn a shit ton of money and then sort of be done with? There's no incentive for them. So here we're trying to remove that basic block, saying that you don't need to pay. you'll get top-class musicians, you'll get a top-class production job. So if you have original music, you should be incentivized to like, even if there's a singer-songwriter somewhere, he sees our stuff, he's like, I have this sketch, maybe I should spend a little more time and effort on that. And maybe I should send it. That's what...
And then it leads to better things, like if somebody's trying to pitch for an indie gig, what happens inevitably is they'll ask you to send a sample of their music or their material.
Yeah.
And if all you have is a crappy phone recording in your bedroom, that's not going to make a good impression. So that incentive doesn't just stop at that recording.
It's an enabler.
It's an enabler to bigger things, hopefully.
And we've seen that happen, like with a lot of our sessions that we've done, they've actually told us that, hey, we got a gig at Piano Man because we sent our video and they really liked it.
The same song, a really nice song on a really crappy recording will not make the same impact as if it's recorded really nicely and arranged and produced nicely.
Right.
If it's well produced and high quality, they'll know and it'll be that much better for them.
Also, in terms of your personal individual music careers, how much of an impact, can you elaborate more on how much of an impact production quality has on, say, if you do something with HeatSync or with something with TimeWise? So if any other up-and-coming artist has a chance to come here and produce something professionally, what change will that make versus sending like a phone recording or something like that? Yeah.
Like I remember when we got our article on Rolling Stone, like that was a big moment for us. We were like, we're a completely unknown band. Nobody's ever heard of us.
From Ahmedabad.
And I sent my stuff to my friend Anurag in Rolling Stone, and I was like, maybe you can write about it.
And then RSJ, Suhas also.
Yeah.
So there are these specific awards for production also. So one of the songs from my EP got selected for that. So I never thought, okay, it's a song. You don't really think about everything that goes into it.
And did you expect it to be a production related award?
That's what I meant. Because I didn't expect it to be a production related award. But then you realize the how big production plays.
For a lot of people making indie music in India, a lot of people do it alone. They compose alone, they write alone. Entering a studio space with a bunch of other people with the idea of having it fleshed out as a production, that itself gives a lot of motion to the composer, because it shows them that, the song is a lot more than what I did sitting alone in my bedroom.
It's kind of like the role I think like a director plays in a movie. The director hasn't written the script, the director's not acting in any of it, but the director can help visualize what that might look like for an audience to see. It was her songs, she's the primary artist, but I helped visualize what that might sound like for people to listen to.
Yeah, and it's interesting you say that because you're primarily musicians. So when people come to a production studio, it's not just that you're giving them technical expertise, but you're also giving them musical insights.
That's what a music producer does, actually. In the way it differs from the film perspective of a producer, is that the producer is almost always a person with musical background. So they not only help you mic stuff and give effects and stuff like that, but they also help you make decisions what part is needed or what is not needed. In fact, that is a big part of that. A song is much more than just what happens once it's recorded. A lot of the song happens after it's recorded on the desk in the studio, on the mixing stage. So I think production really does help bring a song to life from what was someone's idea in their bedroom to what is finally a recording that can be featured on Rolling Stone.
So can you guys just quickly run through the process of, if someone comes to a Compass Box, the process of arrangement, the process of production, how you sort of interact with them in a way that gives them the vision that you have?
The very first thing we ask for is an email with their existing work. If we think that and it doesn't have to be professionally recorded. That's what we stress on a lot. Like, it can be a phone recording also, that's fine. We just need a reference of this is what the song sounds like. And I think collectively, like, there is no unilateral decision made for who's selected now. We all sit together, we all go through the emails together, and then we decide, okay, what about this, what about that? So it's through consensus. It's not like I decide, okay, we'll do this. We all collectively, because I value their opinion also about what is an example of good music or not. So the first thing is that after they get selected, we tell them to come to the studio, and an hour-ish before we record, we sit down, we rearrange the track, we maybe reharmonize some of the parts, and then we practice it a couple of times, and then we record.
I mean, and there's also like sometimes we just listen to the song at our own places and try to come up with ideas on our own, like a unique recording here that belongs to this space. So a part of it is not planning it too much in advance. So it can be spontaneous, it can be that, and we don't remember what we did.
That's true.
Good point. So when it comes to the way forward for Compass Box, I want to talk about two things. One, when you talk about the genres or the kind of music that comes into Compass Box, do you see a space for experimentation, for sort of
Absolutely.
genre
Yes.
bending?
We
Metal.
want-
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We need metal.
We have no genre boundary, no language boundary.
Language,
Like,
yeah.
if it's good music, it's good music.
It's good music.
And that's the only criteria we look for.
Your favorite session to be a part of in the last year?
Does it have to be one that you were a part of?
It could be one that you just happened to
Okay,
see
let's go.
about.
Let's go.
Okay.
Let's go one by one. Then.
Yeah.
Sahil Thandia.
Oh, that is one.
You took mine.
But I played on that, and I think it came out really nicely. His voice worked really nicely with the song, and the violin came out nicely. The miking was perfect, and it sounds good. And it just happened, man. It just the magic
so quick,
moment
I
just
remember.
happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was quick, and it just happened, and it was like, yep, that's something nice. This one's gonna be good. I can feel it
Oh, so you
already.
felt that before?
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Even before I started tweaking
Got that
anything, I'm like,
vibe.
this one's gonna be good. So that one's mine.
What about you, Meera?
Oh, that was mine. Every time I hear the beginning, that guitar, it's so beautiful. Yeah, and everyone's just
Clearly,
so
reason why
insane.
Raag's a guitar player and not a singer.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it.
Was where Raag was a singer.
Rohan.
Rohan, remember? So we came and then we had this song, and it was like this very intimate song. And so then someone suggested, Raag said, that we do a different kind of miking thing. So it was we were all sitting in a circle,
So
which does not
campfire.
usually, yeah, we
Campfire
doesn't usually have.
vibes.
We were all sitting in a circle, and there were these harmonies, and Protyay was playing the violin, and it was just his.
True. Yeah. I mean, those two are like one of my favorite. I liked Hanita session as well. Actually, Hanita session was pretty fun. I think that was one of the first ones where we really rearranged quite drastically. And it was super cool that Hanita really enjoyed what we did.
Yeah.
So yeah, Hanita's was really good.
Sharad, so
Sharad.
that's mine.
Yeah, yeah.
Sharad session
Yeah.
also was. And it's one of our really popular English ones also. Sharad session came out really well, and it was just so.
Yeah.
It was my first Compass Box live session.
That's what you knew.
Yeah. So I came back from college, and you were like, "Oh, dude, come check the scene out." And I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
This was the first time I entered the studio.
Oh, what's your favorite session?
Yeah, definitely Sharads. Let's see. Besides Sharads, I think.
Even Shaswat was really nice. Also.
Shaswat, yeah.
That was nice.
And it's so weird because I didn't know about Shaswat until our Compass Box session, and then I went for one of his live gigs in town, and I was like, it gives you a sense of how quickly you can realize talent, and then how far you can see it go to. It's been shocking because one, I had no clue about the music scene in Ahmedabad, so it's nice to sort of get a sense of what's happening, who are the people that are involved, and more importantly, who are the people creating work for other musicians. It's not necessarily just a personal endeavor, but the one thing that I think Compass Box gave was like a platform beyond anything else.
True.
Just a platform to put other stuff aside.
It's in the spirit of giving.
Yeah, and it is in the spirit of giving, and I think we just
Not
want
to
create a
mention,
library.
not that it doesn't mean we're not ready to take. Please sponsor us.
Please, monies. We need.
One is
Cute.
Yeah.
cool. So, do you want to talk about what we have in works for February? What might be coming out?
So for Feb, we're actually going to be releasing our first drum roll. First drum roll. We're going to be releasing our first compilation album on Spotify, Apple Music, and all these platforms. So it's not just going to be on YouTube. Called Unboxed Volume 1, which we're going to be releasing at the end of Feb.
Which implies many more volumes.
So we're thinking, since we've got so much material now, we decided that why just keep it on YouTube? Why not? It's published ready. Like from a mix and production perspective, it's published ready. So we thought like every 3 months, why don't we just put up compilation albums of the things we're doing? So the first one's coming up end of Feb. So look out for that.
Nice,
Yeah.
eclectic playlist.
Cool. So I wanna end on a light note. We'll do a fun little rapid fire question answer session just to see how well does Compass Box know each other.
Coffee with Aaryaman.
Coffee.
Where's my hamper?
Where's your hamper?
Is this gonna ruin my career?
The first question to our very own Meera.
I'm
What
not yours.
what about? What was the name of the band Raag was in college?
Oh.
What? I didn't
In
know.
college?
Oh, yeah. Oh, I don't know. What?
I know he was.
I'm a little
the band
embarrassed
was
about
in
this, but-
school.
No, you went.
college,
You went to a
college.
studio
College.
and all, and you were.
Yeah.
I don't know what it.
There was an
probably
international lineup.
What was it like? Something
We had a
like,
Turkish singer.
like pantsuit tornado, something like that.
No, it's way
You're
lamer.
really terrible with
It's
band
way
names.
lamer than that. Don't worry.
Give her one hint.
There's a fruit in it.
There's a fruit.
Apple Jacks.
Orange.
Orange,
Chokrao.
The orange peels.
Yes, I know this.
That was my nickname when I was a kid. Orange peel.
No.
Orange peel?
Yes,
That's
yes.
definitely
No,
not
no,
true.
my
That's
bad.
100% not true.
Okay, next question for Protyay. Protyay, what was the first jazz tune that Meera ever soloed?
Meera ever soloed? I have no clue there.
Tell us,
Should I
Meera.
say My Funny Valentine.
My Funny Valentine.
The oldest.
We're supposed
Maybe
to be
get
a
a
family.
sample.
Okay, Raag. What is Protyay's favorite mic in the studio?
Oh.
This is obvious.
This is
Yeah.
your
Right?
favorite mic.
I mean, now it is.
Now it is. Question for Raag. Which position did Shankar play for the St. Xavier's Loyal football
What was the position
Shankar
that
played.
Shankar
Shankar
played?
played on the St.
On the
Xavier's
football team.
Loyal
Oh, I know
football
this
team?
one. I know this one.
Forward, striker, mid.
Hint. It aligns with his political ideology.
Right wing.
Yeah, no, it aligns with my political leaning.
Yeah, I don't
left
think-
wing, left
yeah.
wing. that was smart though.
Okay, Protyay, what is the name of the first article that Meera ever wrote for Creative Yatra?
Ooh. First article, I don't know what it was.
You know?
Can I maybe?
yeah.
I was with you all.
Oh,
Can-
yes.
No,
Are we keeping tracks of points or something?
We will.
Like, okay, fine. Can I answer?
I will direct the question to you.
I don't know the name of the article, but I think I know what it was on.
What was it on?
Something on Hindustani classical music.
No. You were there. I think you also were there.
What?
Was it Nachani?
No.
Yes.
DM Krishna.
Symphony of Orchestra.
Yeah.
Oh, it's
Symphony of
yes,
India.
You were there,
yes,
right?
But
Yeah,
because the question wasn't deferred to you, nobody gets points.
Nobody gets
Ah,
one.
God.
Anyone?
Keep score anything. I have 3,000 points.
How many times does Protyay brush his wavy locks before going to bed every night?
Oh my gosh. I don't think he sleeps.
Before
I think he
going
just
to-
keeps brushing it. And in the
It's
morning.
over 9,000.
It's true. Okay, okay.
Have combs
The
in
closest to the correct answer gets the points.
Actually,
Yes, is
no.
it?
Trick question. It's a wig.
Yes, I'm actually bald. I do comb it once before
Once.
bed.
Oh my God, that long.
So I combed it once before this interview right now.
So again, thank you so much for being a part of this podcast. And as always, please like, comment, and subscribe, and share to our YouTube channel, our Facebook page, our Instagram page. If you like what we do, the work here at Compass Box,
Give us money.
give us if you're an
Swipe
up-and-coming
right on
artist and you'd like to collaborate with us, please feel free to drop us an
Email us,
email,
yeah.
a text, call Raag, keep him busy.
Email us, please.
Email, please.
Please email.
Email is compassboxmusic@gmail.com.
At gmail.com. And as always, please stay tuned for the next episode of Conver-Sessions. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Aaryaman.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah.
Wonderful host.
Wonderful.
Okay, bye-bye.
Yeah.